and welcome to another exciting episode of the Number One Comics Podcast. I'm your host, Jonah, and with me as always is Bill. What's up? This is our first episode back after the Des Moines Con.
Yes.
Thoughts, opinions, what'd you think?
It was exhausting, but well worth it.
Yeah.
I think we got a lot better engagement this year around than we did last year.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. I only made it down there one day that last weekend. And yeah, it was, traffic's a little bit lighter on a Sunday when I was there versus I think the Saturday that you were there.
Yeah.
Which is awesome. It's so good to hear that the engagement was well received, that people were taking an interest in the podcast, signing up for or subscribing to it for raffle prizes, right? That sort of thing. So did we give away any of those items yet?
We gave away quite a few of them.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. We ended up, I think the last day, I ended up taking one of them home with me. But yeah, I think the last day was a little more, we were just kind of like, hey, we don't want to take this back with us. Do you want this poster?
Did you have a chance to shop around and buy anything on the floor?
I did. I got some Lego figures that were like customized ones. So there was a Eric Draven Crow one that I got, and Five Nights at Freddy's one for my daughter, Beetlejuice one.
Nice.
Yeah, got a few other things. So
excellent. Yeah, I picked up one of my favorite things to pick up, which actually is very topical with what we're going to be talking about tonight. Is I picked up a lot of books from the local authors, or kind of the regional authors, and people that are kind of coming in from out of town for that. Yeah. Picked up some art prints from a local artist. Picked up some. I can't ever get enough of they're kind of like the shale coasters. Yeah. With the different designs on them. So I love those. Yeah. And then there was one. I picked up some books from a couple of different vendors. There was one vendor that had it was $1 comic books, or 50 for $25. Wow. And so I picked up 102 of those for $50. Nice. And I think I've had a chance to sort through all of them, but it was a good opportunity to fill some holes in the collection, start building some new collections. So I love deals like that.
And speaking of comics, we had a couple of them to give out at our table this year. Yep. That were courtesy of both yourself and Aunt Lucia.
Yep. Some those comics are still sitting in my storage unit. I've got
we gave away every single copy we had.
That's awesome. Cool. That's good. Yeah. Let's get those into more people's hands. So, and then when I'm long dead and gone, they might be worth $1 or $2. So, it's funny. It's funny. I think I've mentioned this before in another episode, but it's always funny to me when I go into a local comic shop and I find those issues in the bargain bins for 50 cents or $1. Right. And even though I still have hundreds I'll still buy them. I will still buy my own comic for $1 when I come across it.
There you go.
Because I just can't leave it in there, I gotta take it home.
Exactly.
So. And then I'd rather give it away to somebody as well. So. Right. Tonight we are talking about a small press comic from a local creator. In fact, we had him. How long ago was that we had him on the show? Was that November-ish of last year?
Something like that. I
Give
think
or take.
So, yeah.
Last fall we had Alex Dawe on on an episode. Interviewed him. We actually talked a little bit about the comic. Now, at the time, we just had a digital copy that we had looked at or had read, and we're talking to him about. Since then, we've gotten our hands on the physical copy. I know you've got at least one copy. I think I picked up 2 copies of this from a local shop downtown called Ray Gun. And so I figured let's talk about it again and share a little bit more about it. So the name of the comic is Toonman, the Animated Ace. And inside the front cover, I'll set this up real quick in my best cartoon voice. We'll see. I'm clearly not a voiceover actor. Right. Welcome to the wacky adventures of Toonman. Tomfoolery is a cartoon who's crossing through the fourth wall for a second chance at life as a superhero. He's about to find out, however, that the real world isn't quite the same as what he's used to in his own universe of Toontopia. Read along with Tom as he begins his new life as the superhero Toonman in hopes that he can fulfill his purpose as a toon, to entertain you. Toonman. Anyway. Oh, God. So Toonman is published by NRG Comics. Now, this issue, the physical copy that we picked up was $8.
Yes.
This is probably the most expensive comic that we've reviewed to date.
Right.
But I'm a lot more forgiving of that price point when we're talking about a small press book, limited publication run, not mass distributed, right?
Exactly.
And we'll talk at the end of this where people can get a copy of it if they do want it. And we'll also share the link to that in the notes.
Right.
Of this show. Again, writer-creator is Alex Dawe. Art and colors was by Terrence Burks. Letters by Juan, I'm going to mispronounce this name, Juan M. Mañanita. And the cover art was by David Velasquez. Now, NRG is an up-and-coming indie publisher specializing in superhero comics, and Toonman is their flagship title. I do follow them on social media, and it's a lot of fun to see the different character designs that they're coming up with and kind of fleshing out more of these cartoon characters. We get a glimpse of them in this when they talk about, you know, the chicken character. His name's Rocky Road. But to see more of these characters fleshed out is very, very cool. I love the designs. They're very creative, very fresh looking. I really dig them. Mm-hmm. And like I said, we did have an opportunity to interview Alex a ways back. We'll link to that as well in the show notes. By we, I mean not me personally. Would not know how to do that, but our production staff, our amazing production team, will do that. And yeah, I think, Bill, it was even your idea to take a look at this premiere issue. So thank you very much for recommending it.
Of course.
And that's what brings us to this point here. So let's go ahead and dive in. And the first thing I want to chat about, as always, is the cover. And on the cover, we've got our titular hero breaking through the background in all his pixelated black and white glory. Even the font of the title is a cool throwback to like the old-timey cartoons that I had like endless hours of on VHS tape from when I was a kid. Mm-hmm. And then once we get inside the issue, we open to a what appears to be a cave of sorts, and we've got a blonde or a blue hair, blue lipped, blue dressed woman. She's all chained up, and she's met by Toonman, who kind of enters the cave, and she asks if he's ready to take the deal. We then quickly cut to Vaudeville, California. I don't know. Is that a real town? I'm assuming it's made up.
I don't think it's a real town, no.
I did not look it up to see if that was real. I assume it's probably a fictitious town.
Right.
So yeah, Vaudeville, California, where an advertisement for a cartoon called Rocky Road is interrupted by a massive electrical discharge, and in which Toonman is shot out and he crashes into the ground. He comes to his senses. He's shaking away the chirping birds that are circling his head. He notices a crowd of onlookers with cell phones in hand, and they're standing around recording him. His eyes pop right out of his head as he screams. He's realizing that he's in the human world, and he goes to like take off running, but he slams right into the edge of the comic panel itself. So he then realizes he's in a comic book formatted human world. Now, he sees this as a second chance to be a cartoon character again, and he decides that if he's going to be a real cartoon character, he is going to need an animator, and decides that he needs to track down a man named Marty Mason. So we cut to Marty Mason himself. Now, he's sitting in a coffee shop of sorts, and he's being served by his granddaughter, Annie. Now, at first, I wasn't sure if she was his actual granddaughter or if she just called him Gramps because he's like an old dude. Mm-hmm. But in a couple of pages, you learn that, no, it is his actual granddaughter.
Right.
Anyway, Annie asks him what he's working on, and he's got a new idea that he hopes is going to get greenlit. She does ask him about another drawing that he has, and he explains to her that the character is a creation of his grandfather's. His name was Mark Mason, and that character's name is Tom Foolery. And we see that the character is our Toonman. So Tom Foolery was his grandfather's only creation. And when he wasn't a big hit with investors, he actually lost out to properties like Rocky Road, the chicken that I'd mentioned. So the character just never went anywhere. Marty's pity party is interrupted by Annie's boss telling her that she's got to get back to work. We then cut to the vaudeville bank where a customer in line with the teller, he is blasted by this like sticky green goo and he's knocked to the ground by it. In walks this armored dude. He's got this suit of armor. He's got 2 big arm cannons. They're both dripping with goo. He's holding the bank up. The people that they're being robbed, they don't really appear to take him very seriously at first. Mm-hmm. And so then he starts blasting them with his goop guns. I'm going to say goo a lot over the next several minutes.
It's okay. Goo isn't something that's going to get us demonetized. So
No. No, yeah, I could say much worse to describe this. But, it's green goo. It looks kind of like, snot of some sort.
Right.
But anyway... so the people, they don't really take him seriously. So he starts blasting them with his goop guns. Now, a couple of security guards rush him, but he drops them to the ground with a gooey kind of slip and slide type, contraption thing that he's made out of these guns. He's like... squirts it all over the floor. He's just spraying it all over the place. So he uses the goo from his guns to melt or dissolve the vault door. So these guns clearly have like a different type of setting where you can just be like splattered with them, Bukkake style, or like you weren't thinking that. You were thinking that, Bill. So you can be splattered with the guns, or you can even use them like melt shit down.
Yeah.
So or dissolve stuff. So like an acid.
It's kind of like Condiment Man, but useful.
Yes, correct. Well, you know what, though? Recently, I was trying to enjoy a hot dog, and I could have used Condiment Man around because it was a raw dog, hot dog, and it was not a good experience. They're much better with condiments. Anyway, he's using those guns to dissolve the vault door. Now, elsewhere... Tomfoolery is on the search for Marty Mason. He drops in on a cop who's enjoying a cup of coffee and a donut. The cop is frightened by Tom's sudden appearance, and he draws his gun on him. The gun goes off, but Tom easily dodges the bullets with the old accordion head trick where he tucks his head down between his shoulders. Now, this angers Tom, and before he can really overreact, the cop tases him and then tosses him in the back seat. The cop receives a call over the radio regarding the 1065. I think that's our county's code for like an armed robbery in progress, if I'm not mistaken. Mm-hmm. I think 1092 might also be the same thing. Anyway, the cop tells Tom that he'll have to wait while he responds. The cop pulls up outside the bank just as Tom starts coming to, and the cop tells Tom that he better stay put. The armed robber, he stepped out of the bank, and he is surrounded by police and onlookers. And again, he starts blasting them with goo. He tries to return fire, the cop does, but the bullets, they simply bounce off of his armor. He blasts a squad car, knocking it over, and then that car begins to dissolve. Inside another squad car, Tom watches. He sees that he has to try and help. His hand, kind of Mr. Fantastic, stretches into his pocket, and he retrieves a can of Popeye brand spinach. He, squeezes the can, pops it open, gulps the spinach down, just like the name on the can implies. His muscles begin to bulge, and he's got these swole wrists and forearms. He's able to break through the cuffs. As the armored robber threatens the cop, our hero steps in, and he smacks the robber around with the police and bystanders all looking on in disbelief at seeing a real-life cartoon character. The robber, who Tom refers to as Slime Time, he shoves the hero away, and Toonman dodges a blast of sludge, and he gets the drop on the villain again, and then he uses the villain's own hands to deliver a barrage of punches, which ends up cracking his armor. I used to do the same thing with my younger brother, and if you've never tried that at home, I highly recommend it. Grab someone's own hands and use it to punch him in the face.
Use the stop hitting yourself.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I always love that gag. Anyway, meanwhile, in a far-off location, we've got a mysterious villain, and he's experimenting on some unwilling subject. He's interrupted by an associate that shows him news footage of the battle between Toonman and Slime Time. And it's revealed that this villain actually provided Slime Time that armor and those weapons, essentially. Mm-hmm. At the same time that that's going on, Annie is still at work, and she sees the footage on her phone. And she shows her grandfather, who's shocked, and he's like, no, it can't be. Back outside the bank, Toonman, he tornadoes himself into the man with no name kind of style, right? And he's got these two 6-shooters. He quick draws them out, and he fires 2 giant corks into the end of Slime Time's cannons. Now, this causes Slime Time, or it causes Slime, rather, to back up in Slime Time's suit, and he ends up exploding in a massive goo explosion.
Right.
He just goes boom, essentially. The onlookers, they cheer on Toonman until the police draw their guns on him, and the cops that he saved, they intervene, and they're like, freeze, you're under arrest. But the one cop that had originally tased him and that he'd saved, he kind of steps in and he says, no, this is not the bad guy here. The police put their guns away. The police captain or the police chief, they all agree to help Tom find the person that he's looking for. But first, they have to arrest this Slime Time guy and get this mess all cleaned up. So Toonman offers to lend a hand, only to pull out the skeletal remains of what was left of Slime Time. He's been almost completely dissolved in his own goo. Could you imagine you goo on yourself and then it dissolves your skin like an alien blood?
Yeah, it's kind of like a xenomorph.
Yeah. That's the end of the issue. With that, it's stay tuned, folks. We'll have more coming.
Yeah.
Let's talk our thoughts. Bill, thoughts?
As a huge fan of Saturday morning cartoons, and I think that's where Alex, when we talked to him, if I'm not mistaken, got a lot of his. You all right there, John?
Oh, man. Thank you, Barn Down.
That's where he got, a good deal of his inspiration for this character.
Yeah.
So it's really cool, of course, seeing him like run into the comic panel. He's kind of that fish out of water. It kind of reminds you of movies like Cool World or something like that, or Who Framed Roger Rabbit?
Yes.
That kind of stuff. You kind of get the inspiration from like the rubber hose animation of the, early black and white eras and stuff like that, like Steamboat Willie, that sort of thing.
100%. I actually had Steamboat Willie's name in my notes here because one of the first things that I want to comment on is the art itself.
Yeah.
It's crisp. It's clean. It's very different than what we see nowadays from the big 2 superhero publishers.
Yeah.
And I mean that in a good way. Like, It's not that their art is bad by any means, because it is good. It's just very different.
Yeah.
And I think that difference is nice. I love the cartoony style. It fits in well with not just our Toonman character, but the world that he exists in as well, or the world that he's transported into, rather. And I do like the juxtaposition of Toonman versus everyone else, where he's black and white, he's pixelated, and then everyone else is very much in color. Mm-hmm. It's like meshing Steamboat Willie, right, with Teen Titans or something like that into one world.
Right.
What was your thoughts then on like the story itself?
I love the story. I mean, it does follow kind of what you might expect from like an early 90s comic. Mm-hmm. It follows kind of that same, fish out of water, trying to kind of figure out your place in the world kind of comic that we've seen from like Sleepwalker, Darkhawk, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, it's like those tropes we've talked about where, in this case, he's not necessarily discovered that he's got new powers.
Right.
Because these are things that he's always probably been able to do. But he's discovering how the cause and effect that these powers have in a different environment, or in a different setting.
Right. Because in this world, an Acme rocket could send Wile E. Coyote off the cliff, but Wile E. Coyote's not getting up. He's going to be a mangled mess on the desert floor.
Right. Yeah, so I think that's definitely going to be interesting to see that continue on to be played with, and how, and like he realizes, I mean, he's shocked and dismayed. I mean, he had no idea that was going to happen, and when he pulls out this skeleton at the end, and so it's going to be interesting to see more of that, and how that affects him as a hero, Like, does he have to dial it back? Does he kind of continue to that same path, and how others react to him as well because of that?
Right.
It's a lot different in, like you said, in Toonville, when you could shoot a hole through somebody and there's no... They
take a drink of water and it just sprays out different directions, and then they're fine in the next panel.
Yep, correct. Right. Yeah. So, that'll be interesting to see. I really like this character. I like the story.
I do too.
He's kind of a more naive version of the Mask a little bit.
Right.
But that's, again, I think that's good. It's a different take on that sort of concept. What's funny about, and what I like about this character is, as a cartoon character, he's able to call upon lots of different cartoon tropes. Mm-hmm. And I, like you, I love seeing these things. The bird circling around the head, the whirlwind costume change, the guns that shoot giant corks, all that stuff. In fact, I want to see more of that, right? I want to see him paint the door on the solid wall to pass through it when somebody's chasing him, and then they run right into it.
Right.
Or he doesn't fall until he realizes that he's no longer standing on, terra firma. That sort of thing.
Right.
So I definitely want to see more of those tropes going forward with subsequent issues. I think Alex does a really good job of establishing the world that this comic is taking place in. Mm-hmm. It's referenced that there's other heroes that exist in this. So it's funny to me, the levels or the layers of this, because it would be very easy to take a character like Toonman and then put him into a more real world setting and play with that trope. And I think that would be more like the Roger Rabbits, the Cool World, or whatever it may be. But this is, there's an added layer here where we're in the real world reading this. This is a cartoon character who's been transported into a comic book.
Right.
And so the different meta layers there are very interesting to me.
Yeah. Almost, if you wanted to compare it to like a mainstream comic book like Marvel or something like that, it's almost like the character of Peter Porker.
Sure.
Like he exists in a, Spider-Ham exists in like a Toon world,
right?
Like that, and he's crossed over into the world of X-Men and Avengers and stuff like that.
Or it reminds me too of like like Marvel's 1985 miniseries from like the mid 2000s, where it's like, I'm probably gonna get this wrong because it's been a while since I've read it, but it's basically like a kid who's in the comic, but he's like in the real world of a comic world, reading about superheroes in the Marvel comics, and like them transporting or them, kind of coming into his world. But we're still reading about it in our actual real world, which we're still probably in a, simulation anyway. And there's somebody who's reading about us right now.
Right.
And anyway, I could go on and on, but it kind of reminds me of that too, a little bit, which I like. I would have liked to have seen or learned more about the Limbo in the beginning, kind of that, the world that he came from. Like, is it a Deadpool and Wolverine Fox style Limbo where these forgotten characters end up and they just kind of exist on their own, but they've kind of found this way to transport or get to other worlds. So I would definitely like to see more of that or learn more about that.
I would too,
because it was really briefly touched on, and so I definitely want to learn more about that. I have questions, like more about that world. I'm sure we'll be getting those answers, such as, one question I do have is, how does Toonman know Marty Mason exists?
Right.
It was his grandfather that created him. So how does he know that Marty exists? How did he learn about that?
Right.
That's one question that I would definitely like to see answered as well. But yeah, overall, I really enjoyed the story. There's lots of things here to be fleshed out as this series continues, and with any small press publisher, I really hope to see it continue. And just based on everything that I've seen, and after talking with Alex, it sounds like it's going to.
Yeah.
Which is good. And so there's lots of cool stuff here. As far as, usually we have a segment of the show where we kind of talk about what came next. That doesn't really apply here, just because a lot of that remains to be seen.
Right.
But hopefully we'll definitely see more of this character in this world as they continue to build that out. But Bill, tell us about your final thoughts.
Final thoughts on this. It kind of takes me back to the 90s Saturday morning cartoons. You know, it looks like something you would see on Fox back in the day. You know, right up there with X-Men 97, with Batman, all that sort of stuff. And I know we even talked with Alex about that. Do you need a minute?
No, I'm good.
No, you good?
For anyone who's not watching this on YouTube and just listening to it, I just took a drink of this. What is it? A bomb pop flavored sour beer. Not only is it sour, but then it also like went down the wrong pipe.
Oh no!
It made my eyes water. So it looks like I'm crying. They're tears of happiness.
He just really enjoys this book.
Yes.
Yeah, I can't wait to see more, and I can't wait to see more from NRG Comics in particular.
Agreed. Yeah, agreed. I think they're putting out great work. You know, I've seen and followed a number of self-publishers or small press publishers over the years, and you know, and I've seen all different ends of the spectrum. Right? You've got the little black and white zines that someone looks like they print off at the local, you know, Office Max or Kinko's like or whatever, right? And then you've got the ones that they're printed by a printer, they're bound, they look good, you know, they spare no expense, so to speak. And so, and I like the gamut of it, and this definitely falls on the end of the spectrum of, I mean, it looks very professional. It looks really good.
Yeah.
You can tell they put a lot of heart and soul into the end product, and that comes through the pages.
Yeah.
So if anybody is interested in checking this out, I did message Alex to confirm where people can get copies of this, and again, we'll link people to it. But yeah, there is a www.indieplanet.com/Toonman no, let me do this again. indieplanet.com/Toonman the-animated-ace-1. And again, I'm going to make it easy on everybody. We'll link you to it in the video and on the podcast, so you don't have to remember any of what I just said or try to write that down. But yeah, indieplanet.com is where you can find that. I highly recommend it. Go check it out. It's worth the money. So,
absolutely.
Yeah, support those small press publishers out there, and because you know they're not making millions of dollars here, you know they're charging enough for these books to keep it going,
right?
Typically, so
right. And I think especially with a up and coming publisher like this, you definitely want to support them as much as you can so that we get more.
100%. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I bought a couple other copies. I recommend everyone else do the same. You won't regret it. So
yeah, absolutely.
All right, cool. Well, that's it for us for this week. Again, this is Toonman, the Animated Ace from NRG Publishing. Check it out. As always, we'll see you next time. Special thanks to everyone at the Field of Geeks Network for helping make this podcast happen. Special thanks to Raven X for the music.
Yeah.
Anyone I'm missing?
I think that's it.
No. Special thanks to Alex for joining us several months ago and letting us take another look at his book. Appreciate you. And we'll talk to you all soon.
Yeah. Go check out the interview in the link.
Yes.
Below.
Peace.